Good. Yeah, of course.
Having me here. I'm Victoria Fram, co-founder and managing director of Village Capital. We discover, develop, and invest in the best entrepreneurs solving real problems around the world. And today I'd like to tell you a bit about how we do that differently than other investors. Venture capital, an industry that exists for the purpose of backing innovation, is not very innovative itself. It hasn't changed much over the past few decades, is geographically quite concentrated, and demographically quite homogeneous. Only 7% of VCs are women, for example. They typically source investments from warm introductions through their personal networks, leading to a bit of an echo chamber in the discovery of new ideas, particularly the discovery of ideas that we think could address a lot of the significant problems that we're facing in our country and our world. This echo chamber results in more than 75% of venture funding in the US going to just 3 states, California, New York, and Massachusetts. And most of it goes to a pretty limited founder profile, too, mostly white males, with less than 17% of early stage venture funding going to women and less than 1% going to founders of color. The reason we think this is an issue is that it just doesn't make sense to us that all of the good ideas and all of the capable founders to execute on those ideas are in such a limited pool. We think we're selling ourselves short as investors in addressing some of the problems we face if we don't look for potential in more places. Usually when we talk about this with people, they say, yeah, maybe, but it's hard to find people in other places. It's easier for me to trust my network where I can vouch for the background and pedigree of the people that I'm backing and have faith that they'll get the rest of the resources they need to continue growing their businesses. What I want to talk to you about today is how we're building a different kind of network in more undiscovered and undervalued places that we think will yield different results, and why that's important. To tell this story, I want to take you to an indigo farm in Springfield, Tennessee. Not driving distance from most name brand venture capital funds, but a great place to build a business in shared value, and a region that could use a resurgence in shared value, as a lot of family farms there traditionally have been growing tobacco, which has faced a hit as the demand for tobacco has declined. At home on a farm, CEO and founder Sarah Bellows, who started a company called Stony Creek Colors, might be an outlier in most seed stage portfolios, but she's a prime example in ours. With a background in agriculture from Cornell, she developed skills in agronomy, sustainable business, and textiles that positioned her perfectly to identify an opportunity to create more shared value in the fashion industry, where brands are facing pressure from conscious consumers that want to know where their products come from and the impact they're having. And those brands want to have low-cost differentiators for those consumers' needs. In the denim industry, chemical dyes require rail cars full of toxic inputs and byproducts, things like benzene, formaldehyde, sodium cyanide, to dye your favorite pair of jeans. But this dye doesn't just go into those jeans. If you look at some aerial photography of places that are really intensive in textile processing, like China and elsewhere, that same color, you can tell what the trends are in denim in the US and Europe because the colors of the river show that same denim. Might be great for your jeans, but probably not water that you want to drink. So Sarah identified this issue, but when she tried to start a company that would use more natural dyes in replace of these synthetic chemical ones, she discovered that no scalable source of these dyes existed. And she wanted to create a big dent in the denim industry. So she started back on that farm, creating a new supply chain that would use natural indigo instead of those synthetic dyes. After 3 years of research and lab work, Stony Creek Colors' flagship product, natural indigo dye, is now a drop-in replacement for synthetic chemical imported dyes that are petroleum-based. It provides a rich hue of blue and is in great demand from premium brands that are addressing the needs of those conscious consumers. Brands like Citizens of Humanity, J. Crew, Tellison, Levi's, and others that are now stocking natural indigo and being able to capture some of that price premium from consumers who want to know where their products come from. Other large brands like Patagonia have raised awareness around the denim industry and changing it from one of the dirtiest in the world to one that's much more sustainable. So now we have a business that is significantly reducing environmental pollution, creating a lot of brand value for fashion labels and consumers who care about the authenticity and sustainability behind their products, and creating economic value for family farmers that can make the transition from growing tobacco to indigo, a very similar growing process. For us as investors, we're excited that they've established such product market fit that they have guaranteed sales agreements in place through 2018 for as much as they can produce. They're expanding into other colors of natural plant-based dyes and looking at other industries, like natural food colorants and cosmetics, where we're also seeing growing consumer consciousness. So there are lots of reasons to be excited about Stony Creek Colors, but back to my premise that we have to rethink how we're finding companies like this. Tennessee's not on the list of those top 3 states, and Sarah doesn't really fit the traditional founder profile. At Village Capital, we find hundreds of entrepreneurs like Sarah each year that are building great businesses in sustainable agriculture, energy, education, health, inclusive finance, and we bring them together, 10 entrepreneurs at a time, in a venture development program that we've now run over 50 times in 9 countries. And over the course of 3 or 4 months, we work with them on their businesses, but we also ask them to do something. We have them evaluate their peers against our investment criteria, and believe that founders who have in-depth knowledge of the industries that they're in and how hard it is to start a business are the best judges of potential for the ones that will make it long term. Usually when we talk about this with people, they think it sounds a little bit crazy. It must be like Shark Tank or Survivor. How could you trust entrepreneurs to evaluate each other and then have them actually pick your investments? So Sarah didn't just get into our program, but then 9 other innovators in sustainable agriculture decided she was the most investable to get venture funding from our vehicle. What we've found now, having done this and made 75 investments through this process, is that the entrepreneurs tell us that the most value they got out of it was the feedback from their peers, an audience they could trust to know empathetically how hard it is to start a new business, who understand their customers and their markets, and who can give them the candid feedback that investors often won't, to notice where their blind spots are. And we're finding that when we put entrepreneurs in the seats of the investors, we're getting different results. 38% of our portfolio are female founders, 12% are founders of color, and 86% are outside of those top 3 states that receive most of the funding. And we have great performance. Over 7 years, we've had 11 full exits, another 11 partial exits, and have a 91% survival rate out of those 75 investments. We'd love to have you join our great group of corporate and foundation partners that support our work or co-invest alongside us in transformative enterprises like Stony Creek Colors. If you have other ideas of how we could create more shared value in the industries you're in, I'd love to speak with you. Thanks.